Hey, this video is about government, about the most appropriate kind of government for this planet, for its people. And because I talked before in previous videos about my thoughts on the ideals for the human race, such as the idea of freedom, the idea of sovereignty, the idea of personal property or private property, I wanted to extend on those ideas in this video as I talk about the ideal form of government for the human race. And I hope you realize that I'm making this video in wrinkled clothes for a reason. I could be wearing a suit. I could be looking very authoritative, and I could be standing in front of the camera like a politician, so sure of myself. I mean, I think I'm fairly sure of myself as I say these things, and it's off-putting to some people, but I believe I've done my homework on this topic. And so what I have to say comes from a strong belief based on a lot of consideration of the issue. So what do I think the ideal form of government is? I think that the power should rest with the people. And furthermore, it should be local. There should not be centralized governments anywhere on Earth. It may work well for other planets. It may work well for other races of beings out there in the universe, but it's not the right system for Earth. And here's why I say this. I'll probably expand on this particular idea that I'm going to talk about next in another video, because it probably deserves its own video. But there are so many races of humans here on Earth, so many different races of humans without a common origin. And that should be a clue for you right there. Without a common origin. That having a centralized government would be a terrible idea. If all of the human race on Earth was homogeneous, not homosexual, homogeneous, which means a single race of people, say all whites, not just all whites, all blondes or all brunettes or black-haired or all blacks. You know, I'm not trying to discriminate here. Or all Oriental, you know. Sorry, I don't know if that term is still used. Is it Oriental, Asian? All Chinese, how about that? Or all Japanese. All red-haired folks. Nordic looking, or, you know, Celtic looking red-haired folks. Then a centralized government might be a good idea. But that's not what we have on Earth, is it? We have a ton of different races, very different looking people. And this is unique to Earth. I don't want you to think this is the norm throughout the galaxy or the universe. It isn't. It's quite unique to this place, to this planet. And in as much as the situation on Earth is incredibly shitty. I mean, it couldn't be more fucked up. And in as much as life is so hard, and it just makes you want to just give it all up and go, fuck this planet, I'm going elsewhere and check out. The fact that there are so many different races here on Earth should give you hope, because it means that this place is not your typical planet. A lot of cooks have their fingers in this pot, or their noses in this pot, whatever the expression may be in your neck of the woods. And I'll probably revisit this particular concept in a future video, but the fact that there are so many races and each of them is so different means that a centralized government would be a really bad idea. Of course, it's an idea that the establishment loves, because they want fully concentrated power in the hands of the very few, and open control and tight control of the earth, so they can control their assets, and so they can control people better, so they can get richer and richer and exert overt control upon people, because they get a real kick, a real rise out of being able to tell people what to do. Bullies, that's what they are. Well, among many other things. But that's not the right model for this planet. So the right model is what I mentioned at the start of the video. It's local power for the more individual power. And, this was kind of tried in the past. We have a few countries in history that have sort of gotten this right. Well, partially right, because again, it was co-opted by the establishment and it veered off path. And so we had Greece with the idea of democracy. We had Rome with its somewhat democracy. And we have the States, of course. And we have a few other models around the world. But the idea of representatives in the States comes closer to the ideal, because in the original form, a representative was supposed to represent the people, right? The people from their constituency, the people from their local area. They were supposed to take their concerns, their worries, their interests to the centralized assembly, to Congress, where they could each talk about these things and decide on the best course of action. So that idea comes close. Of course, it's been terribly corrupted, and the representatives in the US are anything but representative of their constituents. And I'm sure you have a ton of examples about how poorly that works in the States. Okay. So if we take that idea back to its original form, we have representatives of the people. But I'd like to do away with the term representative, to do away with the term senator, to do away with all terms that have been associated with government so far. We do have one word that could describe the relationship correctly, and that would be a delegate. Forget representative, delegate. A delegate receives certain tasks from the people that he or she represents, and a delegate will then go to a meeting, like a regional or a national or a worldwide meeting of delegates, to represent their people, not to make decisions on their behalf, mind you, but to represent the interests of those people in those assemblies, and then come back to the people after having talked to the other delegates and present them with how the situation stands. And then the people, local people, can then decide whether to take action on certain of those subjects or certain of those items, what decisions they make. They can vote on them in local assemblies, and then those decisions stay as they've been decided locally at every other level, regional, country, worldwide, continental, worldwide, however many levels there might be above the local level. But nobody can override the local decisions. Nobody. That should be the right model. And so, let me reiterate again, the delegate should never be able to make decisions for the people that they represent. They should only be able to speak for them, speak on their behalf at those assemblies, and then the people themselves, then they need to come back and have local meetings with the people, and then the people get to decide at the local level what happens. That's the best model for Earth, for the human race here, or rather for the human races here on this planet, because there are a ton of them. So that's my idea of the ideal form of government here on Earth. And I realized that it's going to be very difficult to get worldwide decisions done this way. But that's the way it's got to be. That is the way it's got to be. Because the way it's been happening so far, where some assholes, some corrupt assholes or greedy assholes, somewhere so far removed from the people that are going to be affected from their decisions, they keep making decisions that only concern them and their wallets and their interests without any concern for the people over here. And that's been enough of that. We've had enough of that shit. It's got to stop. So this is the way it's got to be. And I also realized that this means that the various characteristics or the various things that characterize certain local communities are only going to get more accentuated with this type of government, because the people from those communities will get to decide what happens there in their place. And this can be both good or bad. But we have plenty of examples of what's been happening with centralized government so far. And so we know that it doesn't work very well. And it needs to stop here on this planet. And it should be very interesting as local communities, various local communities, rediscover their roots and rediscover their power and rediscover a sense of ownership in their local communities. It's going to be interesting to see how each of them develops differently from other communities, and we have these different flavors as you travel from place to place. And this is what we used to have in the past, before this globalist nonsense took over. And so we have the same standardized sameness everywhere, where it's just, you go everywhere, you go to any different country in the world, and you see pretty much the same crap, the same architecture, the same companies, the same brands, the same colors, the same everything, the same vehicles, the same roads, the same stoplights, the same signs, it's just the same formats for TV, the same formats for news, the same formats for everything. And it's like you're not even in a different country. You're going over there to discover what's different, to see the different flavors, to taste the different foods. And you just get more of the same. And it's so sad. And so that's been lost. And it's time that we go back that we have what we used to have. But we celebrate the differences, the diversity, the real diversity, not this bullshit diversity that's being bandied about, or pandered about, whatever the heck the term for it is, in the news. Where it's actually, it's mess that wants to introduce all kinds of Trojan horses into our cultures, in our communities, and our jobs, and yeah, it's just a mess. Such a mess. Oh, almost forgot some other important things. There will be no salaries for the delegates. None whatsoever. They're going to be unpaid volunteer work. Damn right. No more fancy salaries or perks. Yeah, the travel to and fro, lodging, travel and meals, they will be provided for at decent rates, right? But no more fancy perks and salaries, none of that shit. And the delegates will rotate from their local communities. Each member of that community, whether they like it or not, will have to serve, say, for a term of 3 months or 6 months out of the year. And then that job will go to the next person, and so on and so forth, until everyone from the community gets to serve. Everyone from that community who is an upstanding member of that community, who has property in that community, who participates in that community, who is over a certain age, and I would propose that 21 is not the age. I would say maybe 35, maybe even 40. Because you need a bit of life experience, you need a bit of having passed through life, having experienced a lot of different things, including loss, including pain, including heartache, including accidents, trauma, all sorts of things that make one a better person, a person that can relate, a person that can have more empathy for somebody else. You know, including success, right? You also need success in addition to loss and failure and the other things. Yeah. So I would say maybe 35 or 40 would be the lower limit for somebody who gets to serve as a delegate. And it can go up to whatever age the person lives, really. The more the merrier. Or not. It can go maybe only to 65 or 60, 70, whatever. The point is, we can't have people that are too young, and we can't have people that are too old to make decisions. We can't have that either. Although we should appreciate the insights of the old more than we do nowadays. We really should. We should realize they're grounded in the past, and past experiences are not always relatable to the present or to the future, to what's coming. But it's worth it to listen to the old, to the elderly. See what they have to say. Take their counsel. If it works for you, great. If it doesn't work, at least you've had their counsel. Yeah. So I think I've covered what I wanted to say on this subject. Yeah. Thanks for watching. Till next time.